News First, face to face with Shalan Benedict.
I feel sorry for you.
Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to another edition of Face to Face. We're joined by parliamentarian Nalaka Godahewa here with us to discuss the current political situation in the country. Much is happening here in Sri Lanka, Mr. Godahewa. Thank you very much for taking time off your busy schedule and joining us this evening.
Thank you very much for inviting.
So, Mr. Nalaka Godahewa, now you entered Parliament at the top of the list in the Gampaha district. First questions first. Now, as the person who topped the list in, correct me if I'm wrong, but the most populous district in Sri Lanka, with the most amount of residents, they voted you in. Are you being given a fair opportunity to represent the constituents who voted for you, who placed their trust in you? Because currently there is a huge issue on the mandate of the government, the mandate of Parliament. Now, you undoubtedly came into power, of course, with a majority consent of a high number of people from the most populous district, as I said before. Are you being given an opportunity to represent your constituents fairly?
No, I don't think so, because the people in Gampaha voted for me thinking that I will be holding a responsible portfolio where I could contribute to the economy. Because economic management was the biggest challenge at that time. In fact, my expertise is also in that, because I'm a PhD in economics. But I was put into a ministry completely outside that purview, and I had to function even without a secretary.
Was it fisheries? What?
That is UDA, but
UDA,
I was the state minister UDA,
okay.
But I was the only state minister who did not have a secretary. I was asked to work with the Cabinet Minister Secretary,
okay.
That is Honorable Mahinda Rajapaksa at that time. So I don't think I was given the right opportunity to serve my people.
So a few years down the line, since you were elected, of course, many things have changed. Sri Lanka experienced times as if that it has never before experienced in the pendency of, well, at least after independence here in Sri Lanka. These days, the debates are going on the expenditure heads of various ministries and various other institutions, and one thing that really caught my mind was the expenditure heads on former presidents. Now, I have the facts and figures, but before I get into all of this, and I'm pretty sure our viewers out there also might be curious, because many of our viewers, if not many people in Sri Lanka now, as a result of the tax reforms and the reduction in the tax bracket, have to pay taxes. So it is this tax money, it is your tax money that is being spent in the millions, I will get to the figures in just a bit, in the millions on these former presidents. So, Mr. Godahewa, now you said your background is in economics. What is the logic behind maintaining former presidents, spending millions to maintain former presidents in a country like Sri Lanka that is bankrupt? What's the logic?
First of all, once a president retires, he's supposed to be in retirement. But there are certain requirements that he may have to maintain his lifestyle, his security, etc., etc. So the government usually put aside a certain amount of money, which is something that the parliament has to decide, which is not uncommon even in the other countries. So I think paying a retirement allowance, providing security and other things, I think conceptually fine. Amount is something that can debate.
So, just to be clear on the amounts that have been allocated, during the budget, and this was passed, by the way, in Parliament, 15.67 million rupees has been allocated for former President Chandrika Kumaratunga, 6.82 million rupees for the wife of former President Premadasa, Mrs. Premadasa, and 29.17 million rupees for former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, 29.17 million rupees for former President Maithripala Sirisena, and the same 29.17 million rupees for former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Now, your logic was that once a president retires, they can't, of course, go and work just like you and I. They have to maintain a certain lifestyle as well, and in essence, they are retired. So let's leave the retired presidents out. Currently, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and former President Maithripala Sirisena are both members of Parliament, and to the best of my knowledge, both of them are drawing the salaries for parliamentarians. Both of them are enjoying the perks and privileges of parliamentarians, and both of them have also now been allocated close to 30 million rupees as benefits for former presidents. So what's the logic in this?
There's no logic in that. In fact, I puzzled on two things. Number one, why is this retirement payment or money allocation is different from president to president? All those guys are retired. If they are retired, there has to be a retirement package, which is debatable for if you want, but it has to be a fixed amount for all the past presidents. Second one is, if somebody comes back to the parliament, they enjoy the perks and the benefits of parliamentarians. I think that's something that is questionable. I'm totally in agreement with you on that.
So we don't see really a voice being raised regarding these matters. I mean, especially during the expenditure head or the debate on the expenditure head on this allocation of money for former presidents. I know it's not a serious allocation. I mean, the figures are there as a percentage of GDP as well. But however, this money is again the money of the general public, and whatever, given the situation right now in Sri Lanka, whatever, even a single rupee is extremely important. There wasn't much opposition against this. I mean, the only opposition that I saw was a few members of the SJB, maybe one or two, three out of the three members of the JJB. Your voices weren't really heard in Parliament.
No, it was debated. Various people spoke, but if you look at this, I told you that the differences between the presidents. One reason could be some of the recent presidents may have more security requirements, bigger security contingencies.
Right.
And when you add up those numbers, probably you come to the amount. I think what we should not be debating is the amount. We should be debating the principle. As you said, I think once a president retires, he has to be retired. If he comes back, then he can't be president. He's another citizen, another MP, another parliamentarian. That is where the question comes.
So, Mr. Godahewa, now you initially was a part of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Now you've broken off. You've formed the Freedom People's Congress. In fact, in our chat before, you're the leader of that party. And
not that. We were referring to some other party.
Oh, sorry. Yes, exactly. So the Freedom People's Congress is a collection of several parliamentarians that broke away from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Now, you are still elected representatives of the people. You have not retired from politics, so I presume you have the best interest of the people at heart still.
Definitely.
So what's your plan moving to the future? Of course, there's a presidential election next year, parliamentary election next year. What is your bid to the people?
See, I never came into politics because I wanted to. I was kind of pushed into politics. I was a professional who was serving the government after retirement from my private sector, and at one point I was invited by former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and former President Mahinda Rajapaksa both to come and get into politics. They actually proposed a national list. I said, if you want me to come to politics, let me contest and come, which is the fairer way of doing that. And where I got the
others would have preferred coming in through the national list because it's a guaranteed seat.
Yes, I wasn't mind taking a risk because I was not so keen on that. But I contested. I had a very hard campaign, and I got 325,000 votes, which was the third highest in the country at that time. But then once you get that vote, you are responsible for the people. Once you get that vote, you can't run away. You can't say you are not interested in politics. At least during that term, I have a responsibility. So when my government that I supported, I was part of, was not doing the right thing, that in my mind, I had to quit. So that is how we became independent. We can't officially quit, but we became independent. We declared independent, myself and few others, and we said, okay, we are not in agreement in the direction that you are going. Let us sit in the parliament as independent MPs and decide how we vote, how we talk, case by case.
So, Mr. Godahewa, it's important that we learn from the mistakes of the past, because we've seen the same thing kind of repeating in Sri Lanka. For example, what happened with the SLPP government. Had an absolute majority, 2/3 majority, first time elected under the 1978 constitution, and then in just a few years, in just a matter of few years, came crashing down. Same thing happened with J.R. Jayawardena's government back in the 70s. So it's a repetition. So it's important that we, although in schools we only learn the history of the kings, it's important that we understand the mistakes that we've made so that we don't make these same mistakes in the future. So as far as the government that you represented, the government under Gotabaya Rajapaksa, when did it all start going south? Because for the longest time we were given assurances that no, Sri Lanka is not going to go bankrupt. In 2020, Dr. Harsha De Silva said that we need to go to the IMF. People laughed at him. Certain even members who are now independent with you, there was criticism against what he said, but today we find ourselves in a mess. So where did it all start going south?
First of all, I think J.R. Jayawardena's government lasted 17 years, so it didn't come down as fast as
this. Maybe the people were more sensible, and then there's more access to social media, so you really can't play too much behind the scenes.
Coming into this government, particularly if you're talking about former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's government, when the government came into power, we all knew, at least we knew, that there's going to be a economic catastrophe. Because the numbers were there.
Okay.
It was very clear there's going to be a crisis, and that was the biggest challenge that we had to handle. But due to some unfortunate reason, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, after getting elected to the presidency, decided to go back to the same economic team which contributed to this. In my opinion, there are two teams which contributed to this crisis mainly. One is President Mahinda Rajapaksa's economic management team, 2005-2015 period.
So you're referring to Vijay Sundara.
Of course, and Ranil Wickremesinghe's Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe's economic management team, 2015-2019. Because if you look at the ills, both these have contributed. So then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was part of Rajapaksa regime. He went back to the same economic management team who contributed to the crisis. So they couldn't avoid the crisis. That's what happened.
So there is much criticism. I think even the Supreme Court determination on this matter had referred in detail to this massive tax cut. Now, of course, as a member of the general public, when the government comes and says, look, everything is hunky-dory, we can give you massive tax cuts, there is no person in any society, any reasonable society, who would stand up and say, no, I want to pay more taxes, because we believe the government, we believe that everything is all right, and people will accept the taxes. So when politicians come now, members of the SLPP come out before the media now and say, look here, when we gave you our tax cuts, you all didn't object, you all didn't say, no, don't give us tax cuts, so you are to blame too. So I don't really buy that argument. Speaking on the tax cuts, what was the thinking there? How did that decision come about? And how did it come about so abruptly?
So this is something that I have to explain very clearly to the general public, because when we were developing our manifesto, where even I was part, we proposed in principle that the taxes have to be brought down, it has to be simplified, because 2015-2019 government had increased taxes massively, right? That was too much at that time. However, the particular tax cut that was introduced was not something that came from our team. It came from this gentleman that you referred to a little while ago. It came last minute. When those numbers were presented to us, I flatly refused to put that into the manifesto. I walked away, and President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, if he gets an opportunity, will acknowledge that Dr. Godahewa never agreed to this, because that was too much. You are trying to solve a problem, and you went to an extreme, and then they went ahead and introduced that. Let's say that's fine. But when you realize that things are going wrong, you had adequate time to correct that, because there was 2021 budget, there was 2022 budget.
And then it's not like tax reforms only come during a budget, like we do it randomly any time in the year.
I think where I find fault with them is, one, of course, too much tax cuts. Second one, why didn't they correct it? I mean, they had all the powers and the excuses that could have been explained to people to adjust it. That is where the mistake was.
So, Mr. Godahewa, now of course moving forward, we're all looking at what can we do next, because people in Sri Lanka have suffered. People in Sri Lanka have suffered like they've never ever suffered before in this beautiful country, and we are trying to find a way out of this. But there is a lack of trust. I mean, I personally don't know who to trust, because so many people have lied to us so many times, and then they are currently running the government. They're refusing to hold elections, saying that there is no money. But however, there seems to apparently be enough money to spend so many millions on maintaining former presidents. So who do we trust, Mr. Godahewa?
See, if you look at the problem right now, the problem is we have got a golden opportunity after the crisis that we went through, Aragal layer, change of leadership, all those things, to make a change. There's a situation where government can take hard decisions. That's why I call it a golden opportunity. But I think the current government is missing that opportunity by not focusing on the implementation proper. Right now, look at the cabinet, right? The way the cabinet portfolios are assigned. The health ministry is the same as the industries minister, two critical ministries. Then tourism minister today was not even present in the parliament. Probably he must be busy somewhere.
He's also
right?
the sports minister.
We were debating his expenditure, and he was not there whole day. I was there till about 4 o'clock. He was not there. So how can you expect these people to be responsible for the implementation? So I think what the problem we have is more than anything is an implementation problem. So therefore I believe the solution is, at least next year we must go for an election. Let people decide whom they want to put in place in power, and those people, whoever comes to power, must put the best team to manage that and implement the strategy. But because all of us can talk about strategies, policies, that is not the difficult thing. Difficult thing is implementation. But when you have the wrong guys to implement, nothing is going to happen.
But Dr. Godahewa, now how Sri Lankan politics work, at least, is now people are a little bit more politically intelligent, politically literate after everything that happened during the past few years. But how Sri Lankan politics works is you get your politicians, your career politicians coming and advocating for a leader, and the people select among these leaders based on who they trust the most. Now the biggest problem is, I mean, even in your case, Dr. Godahewa, you fought tooth and nail to bring Gotabaya Rajapaksa into power. 6.9 million people in Sri Lanka believed you and voted for Gotabaya Rajapaksa, brought him into power. Then you all said, no, presidency is not enough, we need a majority power in parliament as well, and you got another parliamentary mandate, 2/3, and look what has happened to the country. So to a person who is seated in front of their TV now and watching this, why should they believe you?
I would say it's very easy, because all you have to do is you look at the past of the people, what people did, not just the mistakes that we all did. I mean, in 2019, we expected the president to come and deliver a manifesto which was presented to the people and accepted, but that was not delivered. Instead, different things were done. A team that was never part of that manifesto development came and took control of the economy. That is what went wrong, not the original ideas. Those people who came up with those original ideas and backed Gotabaya Rajapaksa were helpless. So just because of that, are you going to reject them? Is it their fault or people who are in power? Secondly, look at us. Right now, we came into parliament. I was a state minister for almost 2 years and a parliamentary up to now. Look at us and say, have these people robbed? Have these people done anything wrong? Have these people not delivered within the limited powers given to them? So that is how the assessment has to be done. If you hang on to a mistake that everybody did and say, look, we don't want all these people, and look for somebody new, that's also fine if you can find the right people. But the mistake is, you might find a completely wrong set of people who have absolutely no clue how to run the government if you try to do so. So I think we have to remember always, we have to pick from what is available. You can always pick the right people if you use the right criteria. But today, when it comes to parliament, I can very confidently say what will happen at the next election. Next election will be won by people who can spend money, because people are finding it so difficult to live today. People will just vote for people who can spend money on them. I mean, that is what I see eventually, right? So money will eventually win, and the rogues will come back, right? So all these theories we talk about picking the right people, I don't know whether it's going to happen.
So you believe that if, say for example, those who were responsible for this economic crisis and, you know, have ill-gotten gains, if they do, spend enough money, they can come back into power at the next election? Is that what you're saying?
That can happen. That can happen at election. Unfortunately, in this country, look at the people who rejected in 2015, people who rejected before 2019. People said these people are rogues, never bring them back. But how many people came back?
But Mr. Godahewa, you need to understand the thinking behind that. I mean, people just didn't vote for Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the SLPP government just because, you know, they rejected the government of good governance. There was an Easter Sunday attack which scared the people. The people were scared. I mean, I was scared. I was wondering what is happening in a country that just ended a 30-year-long war. Does this mean another 30, another 60 years of war? So people were reminded of that fear, and now information is coming to light that many of these people knew about this attack. They didn't take action. Even former President Maithripala Sirisena was held to book by the Supreme Court, and even Sri Lankans now understand and believe that politicians were behind this attack. So that was a real turning point. So at least on that point, with regard to the government of the SLPP, I don't think it was just money, it was fear that drove the people to vote for the same people who they initially rejected in 2015. Would you agree with me?
Yes, I think more than economy or anything, we knew about the economic problem. General public didn't know.
Nobody told us.
No, right?
Right. I mean, Parliament is vested with all financial powers.
No, you're absolutely right. At that time, the main bigger concern was security, and there, to be fair by former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, he brought that stability back. I mean, there was no security threat as such thereafter. Where they went wrong was on the economic front.
But then again, Mr. Godahewa, what about the investigations into the April 21st attacks? What's the status of those? Why were the teams changed? Where are answers to these questions? I mean, 250 Sri Lankans died. Both governments are wrong now. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's government as well as Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe's government and current President Ranil Wickremesinghe's government. All are. But they're all together now. They blamed each other. So my contention is, Mr. Godahewa, so there are two groups. One group is blaming the other group is blaming them. Now both of them are together. So either both of them are liars or they're actually responsible for this, or they are both.
Yeah, I'm also puzzled why this is kept under the carpet when there are repeated requests for investigations. The point here is when general public suspect something, it is always good to make an extra effort and clear their minds. But otherwise, this will always be in their minds, which is not a good thing.
So, Mr. Godahewa, again, now moving forward at the next year, now you said that you identified certain missteps of the government of Gotabaya Rajapaksa, but you came out of the government of Gotabaya Rajapaksa quite late into the economic crisis. So it's important, that point where you maintain that connection with the general public and stay true to the general public and keep the general public informed of what is really going on. So come the next election, of course, you will align yourself with the candidate contesting for the presidential election. So do you think that if you came forward a little sooner, things could have been better? Because people were never told. I mean, until the first installment, that $500 million installment was paid to several bondholders in Sri Lanka in January 2022. Everybody said that things are going great.
At which point did I come out? I was the first cabinet minister to resign when I was given the cabinet portfolio. I resigned before May 9th. When I was appointed the
May
cabinet,
9th?
no,
but that is...
Before that I was not in the cabinet.
Okay.
I was appointed cabinet on the 24th of April. 2 days later I gave my resignation, right? Because I said I'm not in agreement with this. Then the president requested until President Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa resigns and the cabinet is dissolved, remain in the cabinet as a favor. So I remain in the cabinet. So I am one person who refused the cabinet portfolio. Otherwise, other people crossed over. People will continue to cross over for cabinet portfolios. Even when Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe asked me to come and support him, knowing that he would win, I didn't. because I was not in agreement with his policy. So I believe in certain things.
So do you think you stepped out at the right point of time?
No, before that, had I stepped out, what would have happened? What would have happened? I would have been a lonely voice which would have been there for 1 week or 2 weeks. Everybody would have forgotten. See, in the parliament, for you to even to get a time to speak, the party has to allocate. People think you can just get up and speak. You can't, right? You wait and see what will happen to Minister Roshan Ranasinghe after a while, right?
So is that the same thing that's happening to Minister Roshan Ranasinghe now?
No, even to him, that is what will happen, because once you come out, you can't control your parliamentary speaking time. You can't have access to media the way you public would expect. So people say, why didn't you come out and tell this to the people? At that time, nobody would have listened anyway, right? And we would have made an impact. I was a state minister. I was not handling economy, so I was not in a position to make a statement about economy. Nobody would have cared.
So, Dr. Godahewa, now after contributing so much to bring President Gotabaya Rajapaksa into power, are you still telling me that you weren't in a position to sit down with him and say, look, this is wrong, and to convince your team, the team that you ran with, you weren't able to do that?
You remember there was an organization that backed him, right? I think for Vietmaga. He never met that team after he won. The first time he met the team was in 2022, I think somewhere in January or February.
So you are saying this is after he was elected into power?
Yes,
before he was elected into power, he had constant meetings with Vietmaga.
After that, he was taken over by different team. No, I went and pleaded with him, saying, you meet these people, but they have views. So then he called about 700 people to presidential palace and had a meeting with them, but not everybody came. Only half of them came because people were fed up by that time. So that is what happened. He had a very good team, in my opinion. I still think they had a very good team. They were genuine people. They cared for the country. They want to make a difference. That is why they backed President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is also, in my opinion, is an honest guy. There are no accusation about him robbing or anything. But he started getting advice from the wrong people. And a very few people, small clan, started controlling him. That is where things went wrong.
So, moving forward, I think I distinctly remember this. It was President Gotabaya Rajapaksa himself who said that you elected us into power because you were not happy with how the government was run. And if we fail, do not elect those same people back into power. Don't continue this vicious cycle. Break it. If we fail, break it. So do you still stand by those words? Do you think that this vicious cycle of, a group being elected into power, then them failing, the opposing group taking power, they fail, then the first group that failed comes back, takes power, and this keeps going on and on? Do you think it's time that we break this?
See, let's be practical. I always believe you have to pick from what is available, right? Now, however much you may come and say, look, these professionals, educated people come and get involved in politics, they're not going to come. They're happy doing their jobs. They're happy living their lives, because politics is also not an easy thing. After I got involved in politics, I realized how hard it is. So a lot of people are very happy theorizing from outside, not taking the responsibility. So, but then that is why I say you have to pick from those who take the responsibility. Pick from those people who take the risk. Today, politics is a risk. Your house can get burned, right? Your assets can get destroyed. There's such a risk. So, you don't think it's a fun game. There are two types of people in politics today. One group genuinely want to do something. They don't exploit the system, right? Whilst there's another group of people who come to power to earn money, rob, enjoy the power, etc. But the general public put both these parties together and call everybody a rogue. So then you can't differentiate. Today, if you look at the current parliament, do you honestly think that everybody is a rogue? I would say no. There are many honest people. There are many honest people who don't even take their genuine entitlements.
But what do you call an honest person who aligns himself with a rogue while knowing that the person he's aligning with is a rogue?
No, how do you define alignment? How do you define alignment? Supporting? No, take our situation. We are not supporting. We have quit the government. We have quit our positions.
No, I'm just saying at any point of time. At any point of time, what do you call an honest person who supports a person who is?
No, I don't.
Who he himself believes is.
No, I don't think honest people are supporting any dishonest people, right? Everybody is an individual, right? But the problem, I think, sad thing in this country is people are unable to differentiate. People are unable to differentiate the good guys from the bad guys. As a result, by trying to put everybody into the bad basket, you are left with nobody eventually. That's the problem.
I think one thing is for sure that the people are extremely confused as to what's really going on in Sri Lanka, and part of the reason for that confusion is the lack of transparency on the part of many governments that have come and gone, and also to a certain degree a certain level of complacency on the general public when it comes to critically analyzing the things that the leaders of our country tell us. Not everything that they say is true. The beautiful picture, the dream future that they paint for you is not true. So the only way that we can remedy this, of course, is by voting smart at the next election. And I believe for as long as 8 years as I've been at News First, I've been requesting the people, of course, to vote intelligently, and I'm pretty sure you'd echo the same sentiments to the general public, because that is the only way that Sri Lanka can truly prosper and live up to its potential. Thank you very much, Parliamentarian Nalaka Godahewa, for joining us on our program today. Thank you very much to all our viewers out there for tuning in to another episode of Face to Face. Until we meet again, take care and God bless.